Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the Maconi Setup Shop 130K, the third race of the fall season for the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats, live tonight from Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway in Madison, Illinois. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Justin Prince and our producer Ryan Bauer, powered by Top Flight Computers. And we welcome you all, whether or not you're watching along on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Trovo, Twitter, the lot, just about, as we get set for our third race of the season. And JP, this is a very interesting racetrack. You land yourself somewhere between the egg shape of Darlington, the flat nature of corners that you find at New Hampshire, and the shifting of Pocono, and you land about right in the middle of those. That's about where Worldwide Technology Raceway sits.
Yes, indeed, just within a few miles of St. Louis as well. 1.25 miles, open since the 1990s. 11 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2, a bit more tighter as well. Then there's the wider arcing when it comes to the flatter turn 3 and 4 section, 9 degrees of banking. It's going to be a difficult one tonight for many of these drivers here, James.
A difficult one indeed, as we take you through the starting grid, which sees Nathan Lyons set the fast time of a 32.347. Jimmy Mullis will start from second. He won the season opener at Michigan. Tucker Mintzer with the season's best qualifying effort. He'll start from third. Pro Series contender Eddie Kerner coming up next month, or 2 months from now, rather. When we get to October, he'll be there. He'll start fourth. Brandon McKissick will start from fifth. Sixth will be the 29 of Anthony Burrows. Ethan Lane rolls off from seventh. Eighth will be Colton Salek. Blaze McKinney starts from ninth, and Caden Rush rounds out the top 10.
11th spot goes to Nicholas O'Short, with Alec Martinez, one of the drivers along the bubble in the Road to Pro standings, in 12th. Jable starts in 13th tonight, with Nathan Rabideau in 14th position. Presley Soar will look to soar from P15, with Braxton DeWeese in 16th. Donovan Strell deep in the field tonight. He'll be in 17th, with Ryan Kendrick in 18th. Chris Robel starts in 19th, and Blake McCandless rounds out your top 20.
Brett Gardner starts in 21st this evening. 22nd will be John Midget. Dylan Basin rolls off from 23rd, and 24th will be Spencer E. Burns. Landon Huffman makes his season debut in the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats. He'll start 25th. 26th will be Eli Hinton. Matt Danson rolls off from 27th, and Alex Bell, runner-up in the spring season of the ERL, will start from 28th. Sportsman Division champion for the spring, Lucas Graham, begins from 29th this evening. 30th will be Garrison Hogan.
Justin Brown among the last qualifiers. The last overall time was from Alexander Croquet, a 33.358. Blake Reynolds came away with the victory last race. He'll start deep in the field in 33rd, along with Nick Indelcadio in 34th, Michael Finlinson 35th, Jose Salas Jr., Connor Horn, Zach Novak, Yusuf Ghali, Ben Bafford, along with Nick Miller and Kobe Wells. Among the last drivers on the grid, we also have Malachi Drake rounding out your field this evening.
As we turn quickly to the track facts, this is Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway in Madison, Illinois. It's a 1.25 mile, 2.012 kilometer egg-shaped oval that opened up in 1996. The drag strip just along the front stretch was here. It has been here in the home of the Arch Nationals for the NHRA for about 30 years before the oval showed up on the scene in 1996. But this whole complex just across the river from the Gateway Arch in Madison, Illinois, so not terribly far away from downtown, would you believe? 11 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2, 9 degrees of banking in turns 3 and 4. Watch for drivers to shift between the exit of 2 and the exit of 4 to get the best drive off the corner. We'll race for 65 laps, 81.25 miles, 130.78 kilometers this evening in this third race of the ERL, the Maconi Setup Shop 130K. And Jimmy Mullis is going to have to start from the rear after missing the grid. So it's Nathan Lyon who gets us underway, taking off. And the hometown man, the St. Louis native, will lead us to the green flag at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. We're underway with the third race of the season for the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats. And Lyon got a good drive off and away. He'll jump out ahead of Tucker Minter and Eddie Kerner. First side-by-side battle will be between the 24 Brandon McKissick and Colton Salek as they sail off into 3 for the first time, JP.
And this is expected to be a very difficult race. Drivers, we're talking about that the car is likely to bottom out and can be fairly tight. So it's going to be testing the patience tonight of on-throttle time for these drivers. If you want to make passes, you're going to have to really conserve that right front, and as well, time up your passes perfectly to make sure you don't plow off the corner or lose too much time holding each other up in groupings such as this you see.
It gets very tricky once you get back to Salick, McKissick, and the side-by-side battles are only going to slow the rest of the field down. It allows Nathan Lyon and Tucker Minter to get away further and further. The Minter has already closed the gap to that 6 machine. He's right on the rear bumper of the driver for Roush Fenway Racing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And as we begin tonight's race, we now bring in the third member of our booth, the owner and founder of the ESports Racing League and driver in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for Richard Childress Racing. Anthony Alfredo joins us. And Anthony, you've run a little bit of Gateway on Sim. Can you tell us what to expect so far as how these drivers are going to race the track? And I think in particular, unique to Gateway and Pocono, how do you shift to get the best out of a car around here, and where do you shift to get the best out of a car around here?
Well, it's not an easy answer because a lot of it falls down to driver preference, especially at a place like Gateway where you have 2 corners that are completely different from one another. You're down here in 1 and 2, a very sharp, tight corner. It has less banking on the very bottom, which is why you see these drivers run a little bit higher up than usual, not right around their curbing. They're kind of in that second groove almost to stay up on the banking, and they're typically going to hit their downshift right before they hit the accelerator. That way they don't have to worry about wheel hopping and locking up the rear tires by downshifting too early as they try to slow the car into the corner. Someone once told me that the brakes are to whoa, transmission is to go. Don't use the downshift to help slow the car down, because that is a way and a recipe for wheel hopping and causing an accident or spinning yourself out even. So drivers are going to have to do that just about every lap here, but you may even see some try not to shift to manage their tires and try not to wear them out too much. But you come down to turn 3 and 4 now, which is almost like a turn 3 and 4 or 1 and 2 even at Loudon, New Hampshire. New Hampshire Motor Speedway, one of those big sweeping corners. We see guys wrap right around the bottom back onto the long straightaway.
New Hampshire, I think, is an apt comparison. You've got the shifting of Pocono that we mentioned at the beginning of the race, JP. And I think even to some degree, maybe a little bit of the Milwaukee Mile in 3 and 4, just with the way it flattens out. There's a little bit more banking in turns 3 and 4 here at Gateway than there is up in Milwaukee. But it's the same kind of idea where it's a long, lazy, flat, slow corner, and you are waiting for a lifetime to get back on the throttle and roll back into it, because you know if you get back into the gas too early, you end up spinning yourself out, looping yourself around, and putting yourself in a world of trouble.
There's a couple times I've seen calling races at this racetrack, James, where that rolling effect has caused several incidents before, because some drivers might send it a little bit more deeper, others elect to let it roll a lot, and in turn have gone in the bump and run or have ended up getting contact in the exit of turn 4 in sections and groups such as this. So patience is extremely vital to make sure you don't get involved in the trouble in those groups, or else you're getting yourself into major trouble and risking aerodynamic damage. You do not want that, to say the very least, here at this racetrack, especially with the speed needed down the straightaways and especially to roll out of the corners. By the way, some of the drivers who missed the start, Jimmy Mullis, now on track, had a technical issue. Blake Reynolds has also made his way towards the racetrack, also missed the start. The last of those drivers and Ben Baffert have yet to come out of the garage.
So Mullis and Reynolds, the first 2 drivers to go to victory lane in this fall season of the ESports Racing League presented by SimSeeds, with work to do and likely in need of yellows. It's not impossible to get the laps back that they need to here. If we get a few yellow flags and a few lucky dogs, it's certainly not out of the question. The problem for Mullis is that he's got 3 laps to make up. The problem for Reynolds is that he has 7 laps to make up. So tough work there from Reynolds, who slaps the wall and gets sideways over in the corner and is going to loop it down in the grass already. And Reynolds is going to spin out at the entrance to pit road. No yellow flag. He's out of the racing line and out of the racing surface. So we'll see if Blake Reynolds carries on. But as it stands, we'll ride along board with Eddie Kerner in the number 98 machine. And we talked about Eddie at length already, Anthony. a driver who's going to compete in the 2020-2021 eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series. He was the winner of the Landon Castle qualifying challenge at Darlington back in May. He is young, but he is quick, and he has plenty of talent in that Neonism Ford Mustang to boot.
He definitely does, and he's taken full advantage of his talents here on the sim and his recent successes, including the Landon Castle qualifying challenge at Darlington Raceway. We saw him easily qualify into the league in the time attack session there. Obviously put in a lot of laps for that qualifying challenge and has a lot of laps around there, but he's showing speed at every other place we've been this year, including right here at Worldwide Technology Raceway. And we can't forget about Maconi's setup shop for not only sponsoring the race tonight, but building the actual setup that these drivers are competing in tonight. And I know it's not necessarily easy to drive, and that's not what we were looking for, because that's what provides better racing. These guys are all in the same setup, but it is not the easiest setup to drive, which is making the racing intense, interesting, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on the long run the further into the race we get.
And how these drivers manage their tires as we look off the rear decklet of Tucker Minter in the number 10 machine. Minter, you remember, was right there up at the front about 2/3 of the way through last week's race at the Daytona International Speedway Road Course, and gave Jimmy Mullins and Zach Novak a torrid time before they were able to clear that 10 machine. But Minter hanging tight in second. He's got Anthony Burrows behind him, and Burrows has raced his way up a few spots, started in the 6th position, up to 3rd at the moment, and then you slide a little bit further back, and you've got the first proper battle pack. Eddie Kerner, maybe about 2 or 3 car lengths ahead of Colton Salick, who has got Ethan Lane all over the back bumper of the number 26 machine, and those are 2 high-performance motorsports cars together, but trouble on the back straightaway. Landon Huffman has gone sideways in his Total Advantage Motorsports swimsuit Chevy Camaro, and the first yellow flag of the evening is out on lap 13 of 65.
Yeah, and that came fairly quickly, how everything developed. Landon Huffman got very loose off of turn 2. We talked about how it can be tough there, especially when you have to roll through the corner in 3rd gear. That's where a lot of drivers get to the very edge of the throttle. Take a look. This is on the other end of the speedway. It's around the other end of the racetrack in 1 and 2 where you'll see it specifically. He's battling along with a teammate as well. That's Garrison Hogan on the bottom side. Then as they come around to the exit of turn 2, he'll drift around and just try and save the car, and nowhere for anyone else to go as they had no space to try and check up when he will roll it all the way from the apex off.
Not really much you can do, especially with the way the 75 wrecked. He was right there in the middle of the racing line, right up top. If anything, I think it was a bit of a blessing that he was able to slide around right at that very weird exit and that very weird opening in the wall on the back straightaway that is President Gateway. That's so that safety cars can get to cars that wreck on the back straightaway quickly in real life. But it makes it a very interesting part of this racetrack, Anthony. It's not necessarily an opening you see mirrored in a lot of other places, not only in real life, but in iRacing. The only other one that I can think of that jumps to mind immediately is the opening on the back straightaway at North Wilkesboro. So one of these things that drivers are going to have to be mindful of. If we happen to have a major incident midway down the back straightaway where that opening comes into play, you could see cars bounce off that wall and create a whole mess of trouble down the middle of the back.
Definitely, and as you mentioned, it's very strange how we have that cutout for almost the track entrance as haulers to carry their cars into the racetrack, and cars enter the infield right there. So it's a weird spot, but it worked out in Landon Huffman's for Landon Huffman right there, as you mentioned, as he kind of slid up a little bit out of the groove, and he actually just about had the car gathered back up, but he had to slow down so much and get off the pedal to keep the car underneath it from completely going around that. Unfortunately, the field came in behind him and piled in there, but that's a testament to this setup and what we can expect from Maconi Setup Shop, providing these top drivers of the Esports Racing League for tonight's race here at Worldwide Technology Raceway. I just mentioned it's not easy to drive, and it's not often you see someone like Landon Huffman self-spin like that on the sim, as we see many of these drivers sliding around, struggling to find grip, and trying to manage their tires.
Most drivers came down pit road. Most drivers took tires in some way, shape, or form. One driver, Matt Danson, took 2 tires, but there are 5 drivers who have stayed out under this yellow flag and will lead the field where we go back green flag racing in a few laps. They are Colton Salick, Ethan Lane, Ryan Kendrick, Zach Novak, and Nick Miller in the 9 machine. So 5 drivers who will shake up the running order at the front of the field. And then the 6th driver, JP, in the 6th car for Roush Fenway Racing in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Nathan Lyon, who, to remind our audience, is on home turf. He is a St. Louis native, racing at his home track, and has had a decent season in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Managed to grab a 3rd place at Richmond in the spring and was up near the front for most of that race at Charlotte Motor Speedway, which was won by his teammate Colin Keister in the 17 car. Backed that up with the 10th place finish at Atlanta. Currently outside the top 20 in points, so he'd be racing in the Pro Series as it stands, but certainly not a season that has been completely all lost for the 6 machine. He's had some solid runs speckled throughout the season.
Yes, absolutely, and he's in decent track position early on. Looked very quick, mind you, as well, in the early going to this race with the clean air, but now he's going to have a bit of dirty air and have to deal with the drivers on older tires. Keep in mind, there is a tire limit for tonight. 3 total sets available for this race. So that's going to play into a lot of the strategy factors for tonight and how these drivers decide to come down to the pit lane when they elect to take said tires. Because, to put it this way, James, if you say are left without a tire sets for a 10-lap dash, you are a sitting duck. So that's where you see these calls right here from drivers to try and counter-react. And if we get an error, say 15-lap run, expect these 5 or 6 drivers to come down the pit lane, and then all of a sudden they have the fresh tires. The disadvantage, though, is they'd be in the 30s. That's how many cars came down to the pit lane outside of them.
Have to go all the way back to Connor Horn in 33rd now, who is getting him sort of and sliding a little bit further back here. I wonder if he may have picked up the penalty in that number 67 car, but just a tremendous amount of work that anybody would have to do. But with only 17 laps on the tires here, it's a 15-lap difference in tire wear between those front 5 cars and everybody else. And I guess the biggest question then, Anthony, becomes 15. Do you feel like that's too much of a gap to take the risk, or is it early enough to where you're willing to go out and see what happens and maybe take notes for later on in this race when we get down to it, so you can figure out what sort of gap you can get away with so far as the wear of your tires compared to everybody else's in order to hit the right number and maybe figure out how quickly or how shortly you need to stay out in order to maybe set yourself up to gain some track position at the end of this?
I think you hit the nail on the head right there, and track position's huge, as it seems to be just about everywhere with stock car racing nowadays, especially at a place where you're struggling for grip, right? And it's difficult to work your way up underneath someone to make a pass or even around someone. And at a place like this, you know, new tires could help with that, but at the same time, we don't know how quickly they may even out, especially with this being a new setup built by Maconi Setup Shop. So I'm curious to see where the drivers stack up right here that did stay out against the guys who did pit and take tires. And the biggest thing is going to be, you know, the fact that it's early in the race. You also mentioned that, and that's a great point, because the further in the race we get, we may not see that decision, or if tires aren't worth that much in a 15-lap run, then we may see more guys stay out later who did pit. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see this shake out right here.
So we'll see what goes. Can tell you that Jimmy Mullis had a technical issue, so I believe he's been waved around the pace car and is, in fact, I believe, back on the lead lap. He is indeed. So the 46 missed the grid due to a technical issue. That's why he was brought back upon the lead lap. It was not a driver error of any way, shape, or form. So that's why he is back on the lead lap, but buried back in 34th. So work to do for Jimmy Mullis, but not impossible. And the way he drove through the field at Michigan to open up the season, I will not put it past the 46 to put together a similar kind of performance here tonight. It will be Colton Salick who will lead the field to green in his number 16 machine for High Performance Motorsports. That, of course, Nick Morse's seen trying to send some folks into the Pro Series over the last few races of the Road to Pro. You saw an eventful race at Texas last night, which has really staged us nicely for the final 2 races of the season at Martinsville and Phoenix in that series. But we're back under green in the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. Sailing at Ethan Lane will take High Performance Motorsports to P1, P2, but a wreck in the back of the field. We're not going to get the yellow flag, but one car sideways. Braxton DeWeese in the 8 machine got some help. We'll carry on, though, as they come through 3 and 4, JP.
And it's getting a little hectic right now among some of the drivers who stayed out. You see DeWeese back going, so we do stay green, but Kendrick being taken 3 wide in the middle of 3 and 4. Other drivers are absolutely getting freight trained, including Nick Miller. This is dangerous. Some of the SPG machines are going to have to be careful here, as well as everybody else. Here comes some of the Nexus machines, as well as Donovan Strauss now trying to freight train them.
Another car sideways in the middle of the corner, and that will bring out the yellow flag. Looks like it's Chris Rabel in the 05 machine who went sideways this time around and brought out the yellow flag, and that looks like he got a little bit of help from Eli Hinton in the 13 machine, JP.
Yeah, an already apology over the radio for the incident. Let's take a look at this one. You can see it's getting fairly tight right into the corner entry and right about there. There you see the contact from Hinton coming bottom. Third car also gets involved in some slight contact as well. That was Jose Solis Jr. Just pushed right up into the quarter panel. And that, again, we talked about it a little bit. It's difficult to stick the line in that corner specifically, especially.
One of the interesting things I've noticed about Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway in my time watching races run here in the sim, whether or not it's the truck like we saw in the Icebox Pickup Throwdown, or whether or not it's these Class A cars here. And Anthony, I'll come to you to this to get a comparison of how it functions in the sim compared to real life. But you see a lot of different lines and different apexes, especially in turns 1 and 2. You'll see drivers enter high and exit low. You'll see drivers come in low and drift towards that wall coming out of turn 2. How does the variation in lines in the sim that you see compared to the variation in lines that you see in real life?
It really depends on how the car is handling, and in this case, how this Maconi setup is built, what the tires like, what the car likes, and what the general balance is from start to end of a run. The beginning of the run, you might run a different line than you do later in the run. The reason for that being is when you start a runoff on new tires, you have more grip. So later in the run, you need to adjust your driving style, adjust your line, because you don't have as much grip and you don't want to ask too much out of the tires. Some guys may, in fact, start the run with a line that typically most drivers run later in a run, and that will allow them to save their tires and have more grip later in the run than the guys who get all they can from the get-go and rub all what we call the goodie off their Goodyear tires, which essentially means the fresh rubber on the top of the tire on a new set of sticker tires goes away after just a few laps. So it's interesting to see where guys kind of move around and adjust their driving style and their lines. And as you mentioned, they may enter low, shave some time off by shortening up the racetrack. But when they do that, they do what we call chopping the corner off. You turn the wheel a little bit too much and you wear that right front tire more than necessary. So when you enter a little bit higher, you have a little bit more of a consistent arc, and then you can turn the car down and have a straighter runoff, which also allows you to have the wheel more straight so that you can have a better, straighter runoff and use less of your rear tires up. And that's pretty much how you manage your tires at a place like Gateway Motorsports Park, or in this case, Worldwide Technology Raceway. I still haven't raced there since they changed the name. I'm not used to it, but that is the biggest thing, especially in turn 1 and 2.
We could throw it back to Gateway International Raceway, too, if we really want to go retro and throw it back to the 90s. So plenty of names this place has had, but plenty of great races this track has had as well. Tonight's broadcast of the Esports Racing League is brought to you by our partners at SimSeats. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, custom fabricated parts, and complete turnkey iRacing packages, all made in the United States of America. Their customer base includes all kinds of drivers, from amateurs to professionals, and their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Don't limit your track time to the weekend. Visit www.simseats.com for more information and get yourself behind a SimSeats rig today. didn't really have much of an opportunity to race on that last green flag stint. It was only about a lap or two, so it is still Colton Salek who leads the field in the 99 for High Performance Motorsports, running the Jeff Burton number more than anything else. And I think the 99, you think of drivers throughout the years, Jeff Burton definitely stands out as one. And if we're going to go talk about Jeff Burton, I feel like with regards to recent news, Anthony, I have to get your take on your RCR stablemates paint scheme. Tyler Reddick going to be running a throwback to Jeff Burton's rookie year, 1994, when he ran the Ray Bestis colors on his number 8 machine. And Caterpillar is going to go from black and yellow to all kinds of blue, orange, yellow, and white for Darlington Raceway's throwback weekend in a few weeks. How cool does that car look?
It looks incredible, and it makes me want to do a throwback when I go to Darlington in the NASCAR Xfinity Series side. Maybe there's an old RCR Xfinity Series car that we could throw it back to, or one of their former drivers. That would be awesome. But I know that the Chevy Camaro that Tyler Reddick will be driving, that number 8 machine's looking awesome, and I know it's a true honor to throw it back to Jeff Burton and his days there. I know he'll be awesome and in the booth, and excited to see that on track as he's announcing that day as well.
Oh, very conveniently slips in the, I need to see if I can go set up a throwback for when I run at Darlington, wink, wink, wink. So I guess, is that a message for the rest of us to stay tuned, TM, Anthony?
I didn't say that.
Didn't say anything yet, but we'll keep our eyes peeled. We know there's so many great throwbacks that are going to come out and dazzle us over the next few weeks. You get that great run-up of schemes that are all released in the lead up to the racing at Darlington. Jimmy Johnson's scheme coming out earlier today, and a mashup of Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt's main paint schemes from back in the day, and you'll have all 3 7-time NASCAR champions represented on one car as well. Cool news, but not necessarily pertinent news when it comes to what's going to happen here on this restart in the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeeds here at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. 26 laps are going to be up on the board. We'll be running lap 27. We go back to green flag racing. It's Salek, Lane, Lyon, Novak, Minter, Burrows, Rush, Kerner, McKissick, and Ryan Kendra. Your top 10 for this JP as the pace truck pulls off. We'll go green flag racing once again.
Yeah, and 2 teammates up at the front of the field for HPM and Salek and Lane. Lane, one of the top prospects in Road to Pro a few seasons ago, holding on to his chances in that run as his teammate takes them off in a turn 1. Good launch for them, but as we already seen, James, those drivers who stay on older tires got eaten alive right on the first restart. I think there's a chance that may happen by the time some of these cars get up to speed.
Zach Novak already losing a spot to Nathan Lyons. Salek and Lane, the only 2 on old tires up there. Here comes Tucker Minter to the inside of the 90 car. We know those 2 have a little bit of history from last week, but Novak, well, I thought he might cede the spot, but he got just enough of a run coming out of turn 4 to stay alongside the 10 machine. So they'll be wheel to wheel and door to door off into turn 1 as they wreck on the front straightaway, and the yellow flag comes out again. Malachi Drake, one of the cars involved, but not the only one, as we are under yellow for the 3rd time. And Yusuf Ghali is one of the cars involved. Looks like he and Matt Vanson got together coming out of turn 4, JP.
Yeah, and again, it can be difficult to exit the corner, especially since it's like a funnel effect. The incident happens between Danson and Gawley. Then, as you see, the car slide up the track and bam! Just nowhere for him to go for Drake. Again, Danson getting close with Gawley on that incident on the exit of turn 4. Danson tried to hold middle. Just a bit of a push-up from the 54 as it got near bumper to bumper on the exit, and they're starting to retaliate in live action as well with bumper to bumper.
A few tempers flaring, I suppose, after the way this panned out, and maybe not a huge surprise here. This track very much feels like an overgrown short track. Yes, it is longer than a mile in length, but it absolutely races like a short track. And you see the same sorts of temper flare-ups here that you would at maybe a Martinsville or Bristol or somewhere of the like, as Galley and Benson continue to trade blows with their cars under the yellow.
And that just gave it into the longest line penalty to Matt Danson, in fact, for all the bumping and banging. Let's take a look in our onboard view, and you can see Miller just able to keep it in the gas as he watches long, but has to also pay attention since everyone's checking up hard for turn 1 still. Bit dicey down that straightaway, and the drivers are staying on the older tires at this rate. If they keep the track position, might be in a decent spot.
You see how everybody decided to split. I think that may have been Connor Horn in the 67, but everybody went left, right, sideways. Nick Short, I think, also did too, but they were all fanning out, and that was after the yellow flag had been thrown, JP. And I think that underscores your point of how these drivers have to be aware 24/7. And even when you get a yellow flag, yes, the field is frozen at the moment of caution, but you also have to take care to slow down to make sure that you don't run into anyone in front of you or behind you, which sounds simple enough, but is definitely one of those things that seems to be easier said than done in iRacing more often than not.
Absolutely, but one thing to keep in mind, this top 3 is all on older tires. And the interesting point I noticed was there was already a fairly decent amount of fall off at the first run of the race. When we got a few laps in, that was nearly about up to half a second, a full second. But the thing is, these cautions are allowing them to keep their tires cool and get their tires warm in a better prime position. The downside is the amount of heat cycles that are put through with all the restarts that will factor in and potentially hurt the tires if we get a few more restarts. So they got to be careful on this. That's why, say, Ryan Kendrick just ducked down to the pit lane for his first stop and backed out of his strategy, for example.
Get enough yellow flags here to where it would definitely pay off if you were, say, like Orlane or Novak to come in here. You'd have 15-lap fresher tires than everybody else. You'd effectively be reversing the situation that you find yourself in at the moment. So you see Kendrick making the call to come back. He's going to slide deep into the field. 35th is where he should jump off. But again, with the pit strategy and the cycling here and the way we've got to shuffle around to get to 65 laps, it could be all over the place at the end of the day, Jake.
Yeah, and that's, again, the nature of the track, seen several times in various series that potentially happen because it's a driver's track where you have to race the track rather than your competitors. And that's the tough part, is making sure the track doesn't allow you to push up the track. So I think, again, this is going to continue to be tight. Expecting some of our drivers to be nice and calm, though, in these upcoming restarts and how they plan this out, as long as they start in the first half of the field here, James.
You would think that starting up front would do you something, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee you anything, especially when we've seen so many drivers end up side by side, and it just doesn't look like they've been able to carry a lot of the momentum coming out of turn 2. You're sort of deadlocked more often than not, and you can creep your way up through the field, but we haven't had too many hard chargers, save for Zach Novak in the 90, who started in 38 and currently runs in 4th.
Yeah, some of the other bigger movers at this point. Cram plus 12. Burns is a plus 10 as well. He's already come down for tires, keep in mind. Nick Indalcadio was up P13. Horneter plus 11 after getting his lead lap back. And Nick Miller, he's actually gained 12 positions despite his strategy call not working out so far. He's deep in the field, but there's some drivers who have been able to keep their cars clean and gain some valuable track position to try and get valuable points for the standings, James.
We'll take a moment to go side by side and bring you a word from our partners at Maconi Setup Shop, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more coverage of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeeds here on Podium Esports at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway in just a moment.
At Maconi Setup Shop, we offer custom-built setups for any asphalt oval car. Prices starting at just $5. Weekly setups available for all Legends, late models, modifieds, and NASCAR trucks, Xfinity, and Cup cars. Do you need one-on-one driver coaching? We've got you covered. Visit www.maconisetupshop.com and find yourself in Victory Lane. Maconi Setup Shop, handling all your setup needs so you don't have to.
A tremendous thanks to our friends at Maconi Setup Shop for their support of the Esports Racing League, presenting partner of tonight's Maconi Setup Shop 130K here at Gateway. And you want to find out more information on them, you can visit MaconiSetupShop.com to pick up some of the same setups that got founder and owner Jeff Maconi the most wins, most top fives, most laps led, and the most laps completed in Season 4 of Tour Modified Racing on iRacing in 2019. Colton Salick continues to lead this field. 34 laps will go up on the board. We'll clear halfway in just a moment here as we get set to go racing once again from Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. We pick up once again. Salick got a jump on Ethan Lamb by about 4 or 5 car lengths, and he'll be the leader off into one. And here comes Nathan Lyon on the fresh tires, looking to get underneath that 26 machine and take over second, JP.
And several other drivers still trying to find lines, as I think Lane nearly scraped the wall down the back straightaway. Colton Salick now the only driver in clean air on older tires. I think at this point, it's going to be difficult to hold off Lane, but also Tucker Minter. He's been having a heck of a season so far. We talked about his performance at Daytona Road Course in the 10 machine in the backdrop. He also, by the way, helped out with the iRacing's Happy Hour special on the eNASCAR website by working with one of the teams for that event for the 1 hours and working with the drivers on that respective setup. He's already up to 4th now after this restart.
Already carrying on is Tucker Minter in the 10 machine as Anthony Burrows goes to the inside of Zach Novak, who continues to slide backwards on the old rubber. And then you've got Burrows and Novak and Garner and even Caden Rush in the 40 machine that are all there. But up at the front, here comes Nathan Lyon to the inside of Colton Salick, and Lyon trying to make it look easy. He'll get the drive off the corner as cars go sideways and up into the fence behind us. We stay green flag racing until the yellow flag comes out as they start thinning out across the bottom. But Nathan Lyon was able to get the race lead before the yellow flag came out. It's yellow flag number 4 of the evening as there was an incident, looked like it was between, I believe, Nick Miller and Braxton DeWeese, who initially got tangled after the 31 of Presley Sora went around to set the chain reaction off. He got help from Nathan Rabideau in the 93, and that's where this all started, JB.
Yes, indeed, and this is taking a look from the secondary part of things here. Keep in mind, they're already being tight on the entry of turn 1 in all of this. Then, up in front of them, Presley Sora got bumped behind by Rabideau, who missed the braking mark by at least 20-30 feet and sent it right into the back bumper. By the time this battle gets up towards the smoke, DeWeese also blows the corner, smacks a couple cars, and they also stack up. So 2 different drivers missed the braking zone at the exact same mark.
A common issue, I think, in turn 1, but how about pit strategy? Here comes Colton Salick and Ethan Lane and Zach Novak. They are cashing in on the track position, and they will get the fresh rubber to take us to, I would think, the end of this race. The question is whether or not they'll have the time to do something with it, but they'll have 20 lap fresher tires than just about everybody else in this field, and Nathan Lyon will resume the race lead over Tucker Minter and company.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how this plays out. I don't know how this is going to play. If there's, say, a longer run of even 10 laps, I think we see a lot of the field come in, and then they end up staying out of the racetrack and have a strong chance to win. But if it becomes caution precautions, I don't think you dare try and hit it this rate, because it's too much of a risk, because I don't know if you're going to get enough laps at the rate we're going to be able to gain the track position back. So this is going to be high risk, high reward now for those drivers.
Valid point, I believe, as we'll take a moment to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. It is Nathan Lyon, the hometown hero, running P1 at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway. Then Tucker Minter, Anthony Burrows, Eddie Kerner, Caden Rush, the rest of your top 5. Brandon McKissick, Alec Martinez, Donovan Strauss, Blake McCandless, and Spencer E. Burns. Rest of the top 10, JP.
11th spot right now to the racetrack. Lucas Cram quietly up 18 spots in the number 44 machine. Remember, one of the top drivers in Sportsman Series in Season 1 of Hero Action. In 12th spot, Landon Huffman has worked his way up to that position, plus 13, after he had his moment off turn 2 with the first caution of the race. Nathan Rabideau is right behind him, along with Blaze McKinney in 13th and 14th. Brett Gardner's in about 15th position. Nick Del Candio is in 16th. Nicholas Short is in 17th position. Jimmy Mullis has worked his way up to 18th spot after missing the grid after being one of the top qualifiers for tonight in time. Connor Horn, 19th. Alex Bell rounds out your top 20.
21st at the moment is Garrison Hogan. Justin Brown sits in 22nd. 23rd is John Midget. Michael Finlayson runs in 24th. 25th is Chris Rabel. Eli Hinton runs 26th. 27th to Ryan Kendrick. Matt Danson holds 28th. 29th is Colton Salick. And 30th, Ethan Lane. Those two part of the trio that just came down pit road.
And to put the statement in on how they feel the strategy's gone, it's, well, RIP us. Zach Novak among those drivers now in 31st on that strategy. Jabo's in 32nd spot. Nick Miller 33rd. Drake in 34th. Wells, Sora, DeWeese, and Golly are the last cars running. Your DNFs are Solis Jr., along with Cronke, along with the 08 of Dylan Basin, Blake Reynolds, who, when we seen him have that moment into the pit lane, apparently had his wheel half disconnect. And that rounds out the drivers who started tonight's race, James.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. So take a look on your screen. You'll see some of the events that you can find in the world of iRacing and Podium Esports coming up, and a tremendous amount of action, which continues tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's the Cars Esports Tour from Martinsville on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. So if you're watching via twitch.tv/Podium Esports, don't go anywhere. We'll have more action for you at the top of the hour. If you're on the ERL Racing Twitch channel, head on over to twitch.tv/Podium Esports at the end of tonight's broadcast. And when we hit 9 p.m., you'll see Racing from the Paperclip, that series beginning to wind its way down as we get towards the end of their season. FTF on Saturday night, GameWorks on Sunday night, Sim 5 on Monday night, as per usual. Before it's the Coke Series from Daytona, getting set for a very, very big race. JP, 9 p.m. next Tuesday night on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. And yes, we can talk about playoffs. Playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? Playoffs? Yes, we can do that. I think in that race, because there will be championship implications. No.
Absolutely, but don't forget as well that the ERL gets the chance to do the same on Wednesday with the Top Flight Computers 125. So they get to test themselves at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. There's going to be a lot of intense racing with so many drivers close to the bubble. We've talked about it a little bit before. It is tight for the top 8 cutoff right now in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. I think we're about to get ready to get rolling once again in what's expected to be a tight restart.
Should be very, very tricky. Nathan Lyon, your leader, as we come to lap 42 of 65. Oh, he missed the shift. Nathan Lyon missed the shift, and it stacks up everybody in the middle of the field. Eddie Kerner sideways. They wreck on the front straightaway. You don't even make it to the start-finish line before everybody goes around. And Nathan Lyon missed the shift, stacked it up some way, somehow. And we end up under the yellow again. Either that or Minter went early, and Lyon was just sort of sitting waiting for Minter to come back. But in either case, I think people either saw the 10 or the 6 missed it. I'm not sure. So I look back at the replay and thinking it might be more Minter than Lyon. But that'll be an interesting one for race control to sort out, JP. But either Lyon missing it or Minter going too early caused everybody else to stack up, and that's what brought out the yellow.
Yeah, that jump a little bit, as well as the jump from the second row with the contact from behind, I think just stacked everyone up. I've seen it happen several times where drivers will anticipate the start, when it's waiting for green, like what we've seen from Lion, and just end up jumping in and rear-ending someone. That happened in several rows. Corner got loose and the whole track got blocked. What a save by some of these drivers, though, to stay out of the contact in what we might call the massive one here at Worldwide Technology Raceway Park.
And the worst part about this front straightaway is that with the way the pit wall is set up, it just funnels down the front stretch, and it's really hard. If you have a wreck on a restart like this, everybody ends up sideways and involved in it some way, somehow. And for a lot of people, there was barely anything that could be done. I think Malachi Trey might have had the best at it. He just sat on the brakes and let everybody wreck in front of him, and then snaked his way through all this. But there were about 15 or 20 drivers who got at least some form of damage in this. John Midget and Ethan Lane might be the only two in the back of the field that managed to go through all of this and not get hit in any way, shape, or form. But an interesting point, I think, in chat, which I think largely confirms that Minter probably went early. Nathan Lyon came into the instant chat and made the point that the leader controls the restarts, by the way, for everybody from row 2 on back. So Lyon was waiting, maintaining his speed. Minter went, then had to check up. Everybody else saw Minter go. They thought that Lyon had went, and that created the accordion effect. At least that's Lyon's perspective from it.
110%, and I think Anthony may have a good perspective on this as well, is it just turned into absolute calamity, and that's the importance of being aware of what's going on these starts, it seems, Anthony. And we've seen the consequences of, if you try and jump it, you're likely taking the field with you if you miss time said jump.
Absolutely, and that looks exactly what happened. And you brought up a great point. When the track got blocked there, as soon as a couple cars got sideways, it's pretty narrow off of turn 4 when they're coming to the green, and that explains why the rest of them had nowhere to go. Everyone was trying to check up, and it's just a domino effect. It seems as everyone else checks up, the further and further back you are in the field, the harder it is to slow down in time, and it just caused a huge wreck. But a few guys were able to make it through. Jimmy Mullis, we saw in that replay, almost made it through. So some really competitive race cars and drivers got taken out right there. But I believe Nathan Lyon just missed a shift right there. It's what it looked like, and you can blame that on when you're getting shoved like that. It's not easy to get the car into gear. The rear tires are coming off the ground. You're not hooked up. You don't have a lot of grip. You're trying to shift, and the car is spinning the tires and sliding around, and it's just very, very difficult. So just a combination of things of being pushed coming to the green, trying to stay side by side with the leader when he fires, and of course trying to get the car into gear.
It's an interesting one, and that's absolutely one that race control is going to have to call, whether or not Lyon missed the shift and stacked everybody up, or whether or not Minter went too early. We know Lyon's perspective. You would assume that Minter would argue that Lyon missed the shift, and it becomes a he said, she said, which is why we have people in the tower to begin with. So we'll see what race control says regarding the incident. In the meantime, though, we bring in tonight's presenting partner of the Maconi Setup Shops 130K. Jeff Maconi now joins us in the booth. And Jeff, I was making the joke earlier that Northeastern guy who loves modified sets up a setup shop that specializes in modified setups for the Tours and the SKs, but there's a little bit more at Maconi Setup Shop than just modified setups. So tell us about your start and how Maconi Setup Shop has come to be and how it's grown in the past year.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, thank you guys for letting me be up here. Hello to everyone out there watching. We're really happy to be involved with this, with everything going on here. But Maconi Setup Shop started out about 2 years ago when I first started iRacing. I mostly tried to get into the modifieds and wanted to work my way up to the Cup Series, and I said, I'm going to run that all the time. And then I got up to the Cup Series and said, man, this just isn't for me. So I went back down, I started racing modifieds, and people mopped the floor with me. I got absolutely beaten down like you wouldn't believe. So I started building setups, and over the course of about 2 years, kept building, and got half decent at it. And then really, when the whole coronavirus pandemic started, that's when I started saying to myself, why not start up a shop? You know, I thought about it before, but why not start up a shop? And in the past 2.5 months, this is our first full season here of selling setups, 20S3, and it's just been absolutely amazing. So we started off doing just the modifieds at the beginning of the season, where it was the SK mods, Tour mods, late models, and super late models. That's all we sold. We didn't play out of position. We knew we were good at those, and we sold those. Then we sort of expanded and grew. We brought on the Overton Speed Shop to sell our Cup, Xfinity, and Truck setup, and they're the ones that made this setup here tonight. And I know that a lot of the drivers are struggling with this setup, and they're probably thinking to themselves, this is absolutely crazy. What are they doing? This is horrible. How can we deal with this? We can put these guys on rails, and I'll tell you what, the setups that we have for Cup, Xfinity, and Truck for Dover, and actually Gateway for the trucks this week, but the ones that we sell on the official side, you will be on rails, you'll be hooked up, and you are good to go, and you can go out there and compete with some of the best. But if you come to us with a league something and you say, we want something interesting, make the racing exciting, and that's what Anthony told me, give us something that'll lead to good racing. We don't want them just straight line, that's it. And so we sort of came out here and said, all right, we're going to give them a car that they're going to have to drive. And we had a team meeting discussing it and said, let's give them something they have to drive. So that's what we're all about here at the Maconi Setup Shop, is just putting stuff together for the official side. We're there to get you to victory lane. And if you come to us with a league and say, get us on rails, we can do that. But we can also make racing like this, and it looks like they're getting ready to go back green.
As they go back green flag racing, you've got plenty of involvement with Stafford Motor Speedway. And for those unfamiliar, modified racing is huge in the Northeast. That's your bread and butter. You've got plenty of involvement with Stafford yourself. Can you explain to the fans at home, and especially for those who don't live in the Northeast, what kind of phenomenon toward SK modified racing is there, both in iRacing and in real life?
You hit the nail on the head there. I do work up at Stafford Motor Speedway. I'm an announcer up there, so to be an announcer and sort of carry that over into the race cars is a lot of fun. But up here in the Northeast, where I grew up, the modifieds, like you said, are everything. It is any sort of racetrack you go to up here. If they're not running modifieds and they're an asphalt track, something's wrong. You need to get a refund on your ticket, because everyone here in the Northeast runs the modifieds, and it's purely because they're simpler to work on for the drivers. They tend to run a little bit cheaper than some other cars, and you can take those cars and they're convertible. So an SK Light is the same chassis as an SK Mod, the same thing as a Tour Mod and an Open Mod. You just swap the engine in and out of those cars, so they're very adaptable. You can see someone race an SK Modified one week, take that same chassis, swap the engine out, and go run it up in New Hampshire in a Tour Modified race. So people love that about them, and Stafford Motor Speedway especially, it's the home of the SK Modifieds. They created it about 40 years ago. People love them to death up there because the racing is so unique. You've got so much power, so much downforce with those cars, and the big, wide 15-inch, 18-inch tires are everything in those cars. They absolutely just tear up the track, and you've got so much grip. You can just cruise right around, and it leads to some really great racing.
Stafford, I think, is a special track so far, not only as iRacing is concerned, but I think in real life is concerned, because Stafford, to me, has done a great job of embracing 21st century technology and social media to promote the action that goes on at their facility, both in real life and in iRacing. Back in the spring when the pandemic broke out, Stafford became the first racetrack since the now late Myrtle Beach Speedway in 2018 to put together its own iRacing series. We had virtual racing from Stafford Motor Speedway on Friday nights. That might not necessarily have been in the same manner that you all are accustomed to up there, but you got racing at Stafford on Friday nights after all, with the help of the folks at GSRC, our good friends over there, putting together that show for Stafford. And how cool was it to be a part of that and to see Stafford really take advantage of this platform to continue to get the word out about how great the racing is there, even when we were all cooped up in our homes for 2 months?
That was a really amazing experience. I was heavily involved with that, actually. I was one of the announcers, and the only announcer that was there every single week, and I was working hand in hand with Paul LaRoute, who leads up the social media effort that you mentioned. And yeah, that's what they're really all about behind the scenes, is engaging fans, always pushing the boundary, seeing what can we do next, where can we go. And when we were faced with this pandemic, I sort of reached out to Paul and said, and nudged him again and said, hey, we should really get on iRacing. We should really put a league together and do it. And finally he agreed, and he really did a great job getting the ball rolling. And like you mentioned, with GSRC broadcasting that every single Friday night, and that was huge for the fans. I mean, we had thousands of people. The first broadcast, we had 1.2 thousand viewers on average, like through the entire broadcast. And we found that the people would watch the entire event. They wouldn't tune in for 5 or 10 minutes. And to have people watch for the entire hour and a half, 2 hours that it was going on was really something else. And that was also sort of the first test for the Maconi setup shop, because I was building those setups as well and listening to the driver's feedback and figuring everything out. So it was a lot of learning from everybody there, the whole broadcast team, and really the Aroots who run the facility. It was a learning experience for everyone to figure out what works, what doesn't work in iRacing, and coming up with a solid product. But I think at the end of the day, they did everything they needed to do, and they did it right to make sure they had a quality product to put out for the fans. And even throughout the entire summer when I was at the track, people would come up and say that was amazing how well it came together on iRacing. It made our Friday nights. Everyone was so worried and anxious about the pandemic, and still are, but to have that sense of normalcy on Friday nights where they could tune in on YouTube and watch Stafford Speedway drivers, names that they knew, and race every single Friday night was really, I think, comforting to a lot of people, as well as fun. They could get their enjoyment out of it.
I would argue that Stafford set the blueprint for any track that's involved in iRacing to put together a program like that. If we ever end up in the same sort of situation again, I think we know who to follow when it comes to putting together a local weekly program in iRacing and making it successful. Jeff, if people want to find out more about Maconi Setup Shop and want to find out more about you follow along in your adventures, either at Stafford or in iRacing or wherever, where can they reach out? Where can they find Maconi Setup Shop? Where can they find Jeff Maconi on the internet?
Well, if you want to find Maconi Setup Shop, we try and be all over Facebook and pretty much anywhere you can possibly be on Facebook, we try to be there. But we're at facebook.com/Maconi Setup Shop, or you can just search Maconi Setup Shop, 3 words up there up at the top. We're also on Twitter at Maconi Setup Shop. And we have our website, www.MaconiSetupShop.com. We recently have fully automated our shop, and in about 8 days, we've had 60 orders. Not 60 setups sold, 60 orders of setups. So it's just been through the roof. If you want to get involved with this, and because at this point, you're probably going to be in a session with someone running Maconi Setup Shop setups underneath them, and they're probably going to be out towards the front. So just www.MaconiSetupShop.com, and you can click on the shop tab. You can click about us and learn more about the team behind the scenes and everything else. We've got open applications for drivers. If you want to be a sponsored driver, we cover all your setups. We do a portion of, like, you paying for events. You get first dibs at all the events we put on. We've got one coming up this Saturday, which Justin is going to be behind the microphone for, and you can hear more about that on the IR download tomorrow morning, which is going to be a ton of fun there. I'm really excited to hear that come out. But we've got an event coming up on Saturday night. We're giving out $300 in prize money. So there's just so much going on, and really so many events going on. So just follow along on Facebook, like our page on Facebook, and check out our website constantly, because things are constantly changing and being updated there, because there's so much going on. If you want to follow along with me, you can find Jeff Maconi Announcing over on Facebook, or you can add my personal profile as well, Jeff Maconi, and just keep up to date, because I'm trying to be as involved as I possibly can in the iRacing community. And we've got setups available, we have advice available. If you have any questions whatsoever about a setup, even if you don't buy one of ours, if you've never bought anything of ours before, if you're running a competitor setup, whatever it is, and you need help, you need advice on what to do, what to change, we do that for free. Shoot us a message and we will help you out and tell you what you can do to help you improve and be better. That's what we're all about. We're just trying to make the community a better place and bring people together.
First time on a Podium Esports broadcast. I have a hunch it won't be the last time. But Jeff, thanks for the time, and we look forward to seeing you back here on our airwaves in the not too distant future.
That sounds great to me. You guys have a great night and enjoying the broadcast. Have a good one.
Jeff Maconi, founder and owner of MaconiSetupShop.com, presenting partner of the Maconi Setup Shop 130K. We're going to get back to racing with 11 laps to go, depending on how you slice it and how you look at it. But it's Nathan Lyon and Tucker Minter still out in front as they go one more time down the front straightaway. A better restart for Lyon and company. Big move there from Connor Horn, who nearly got squeezed all the way to the wall by Ethan Lane, just a little bit further back in the field. But it's Lyon out in front of Minter, who sits in second. Third, there goes Anthony Burrows with a big run trying to get around that number 24 of Brandon McKissick, and maybe, just maybe, Donovan Strauss might have something to say about the battle for fifth, JP.
Yeah, and these drivers starting to get very dicey amongst the pack. Keep in mind, some of the drivers on fresher tires are still cutting their way up to the field as well. Ethan Lane, we talked about him and his gamble. He's moving to the field. Connor Horn is a part of that gamble, and even fresher tires. Those drivers are coming in fairly quickly. They've actually quietly made their way back in the top 10, in part because of what happened with the trouble yes in the front stretch, but they're having extra grip to exit the corners and avoid incidents like this one.
Ethan Lane just got turned down the back straightaway and smacked the fence coming out of turn 2. Contact, I think, maybe. Actually, no, he just lost it all on his own and got loose. It was almost identical to what Landon Huffman did at the beginning of the race, and Huffman, ironically, just got into the fence. It just got into Ethan Lane coming out of turn 4 to bring out the yellow flag once again as they wreck down the front straightaway. And I don't know if you could perfectly time it any more than that, but Lane, just a little contact from Huffman, who overdrove corner exit, bounced off the fence, bounced back into Ethan Lane, and the 26 had nowhere to go. There was nothing he could have done about that, JP.
Yeah, he definitely scraped the safer barrier right here. He tries to turn it off the wall just a little too much to the right. He needed about a half car length of space to try and save that machine, give or take, but man, to waste nowhere to go. A huge shot for the number 8 machine in that incident.
Same sort of funnel effect, Anthony, that we've seen. You see cars start spinning and crashing. The obvious example is Brad Keselowski and Carl Edwards about 10 years ago here, when Edwards turned Keselowski on the final lap of the Xfinity Series race, and Keselowski went spinning like a top down the front straightaway. But this is such a narrow front stretch that you have someone wrecked like that, it becomes very, very difficult to figure out which way you need to go. Because if you got one car spinning and effectively occupying 2 lanes, realistically, there's only about one more lane that you get to try and pick to try and avoid contact. And if you don't get it right, you're going to end up smacking them. Now, there's about a 30% chance if you got somebody spinning like that, that you're going to be able to get around it without collecting any damage.
Absolutely. And I could speak from real life experience. I've picked the right lane before, and I've picked the wrong lane before. And even times I've picked the only lane available and still got caught up in a wreck just because it's the only place you can go. And when you're carrying such high speed, you can only get slowed down so quickly, especially with drivers behind you who maybe don't see it in time and are coming barreling in there way too fast for themselves to slow down when to your speed. If you're already, first there at the scene and able to start slowing down or try to avoid it. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is when you get on the brake pedal really hard, especially if you lock up the tires and you start sliding, you cannot control the direction of your race car. So if you end up locking up the brakes because you're trying to get the car slowed down to avoid it, and you try to turn left or right to fill a hole and go around someone, the car can continue to go straight and you can just end up going right into the wreck, and it just kind of causes a chain reaction from there. And I think that's some of what we saw right there. Is that was just such a crazy wreck, and we saw him bouncing off the outside wall so quickly, and people who went low continued to go low because they saw the guys in front of him go there, but suddenly he bounced off the outside wall and slid down right in front of them. So it's just very difficult to make those decisions, and sometimes you do all you can and you still end up getting caught up in it.
And sometimes the right thing to do, ironically enough, is to drive right where you see the car. Because in a case like that, where you got Ethan Lane pinballing off the wall and coming back down the racetrack, if you go to where the car is when you see it, by the time you get to where that car is, sometimes the car slid out of the way and you end up with some daylight to sneak through. So one of those weird mind tricks that you have to be wary of, especially on a front stretch like this one. While we have a moment, we'll remind you that if your brand or business is interested in partnering with Podium Esports, we have space available for you. Podium Esports has a plan for every budget and can custom tailor solutions to suit your business or brand's needs best. For more information on the wide variety of partnership possibilities, send an email to admin@podiumesports.com. Our broadcast is also brought to you by SimSeats. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, custom fabricated parts, and complete turnkey iRacing packages, all made in the United States of America. Their customer base includes all kinds of drivers, from amateurs to professionals, and their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Don't limit your track time to the weekend. Visit simseats.com for more information and find out how you can get behind the wheel of a SimSeats rig today. Also, plenty of events coming up in the world of iRacing over the course of the next week. Our night of iRacing continues on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. At the top of the hour, we'll bring you action from the Cars Esports Tour. They head to Martinsville Speedway, the Paperclip home to the Valley Star Credit Union 300. We'll see the late models and the super late models take to the racetrack tonight. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern. So head on over to the Podium Esports Twitch once we're done here for more racing action this evening. Then Saturday night, you've got the 2007 version of Daytona, Bumpy Daytona, for the FTF Grand National Series. That'll be here on the Podium Esports Twitch. Then GameWorks on Sunday from Michigan, Sim 500 from Daytona. On Monday night, Tuesday night, it's the Coke Series from Daytona. Wednesday night, ERL back in action from Daytona. So we're going to go away down to South Florida for a little bit of action, JP, and we'll see how many people are old enough to get the reference there.
Yeah, I think that reference just went over my head, honestly, but still, this race is going to get intriguing. Let's put it that way right now. We're coming towards 4 laps to go, still under the caution flag, expecting potential 3-lap shootout. The amount of intensity we've seen is fairly high throughout the evening, but it's going to be even more tense for these drivers right now, where there's going to be a lot of pushing and shoving. There might be a little, very little give, so to speak. So if you're, say, a Donovan Strauss or a Blake McCandless or a Connor Horn, they may try and send it to try and win this race in the final few laps of this one.
Clearly, young grasshopper, we need to educate you on the excellence that is Daytona USA, only one of the greatest arcade games of the 1990s. That opening song.
I know that one. Daytona.
Yeah,
Let's go away.
There we go. See, I knew you knew it somewhere in the back of your head. We just had to pull it out. So now we got that at the forefront. We've got Nathan Lyon at the forefront of this race. We'll have 3 laps to go in the Maconi setup shots 130K. When we go back to green flag racing, and green-white checkers are available if we need them. If we need them. I have a hunch we probably will, just off the way things have played out, but you never know. The real question and the big question is, can Nathan Lyon win his home race? This is his home track, and the St. Louisian will lead us to the green again. We'll see what kind of restart he gets over Tucker Minter. They wait, and the box said now Nathan Lyon takes on 3 laps to go now at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway, and it wasn't the greatest of restarts for Minter, who's going to have to fall in line back behind Lyon, but had a big send into the corner there and got a good run off the corner. He nearly was side by side with the 6 for the moment, but he'll stick himself back in line again and try and catch Lyon down in 3 and 4, JP.
Decent start for the top 2, but this battle for third on back is going to make things very tricky. Keep in mind, it's an X's 2, 3, 4 right now with some of the teammates. 3-1 is some more cars near Archie Bargy as Connor Horn wants to get moving on the fresher tires.
Connor Horn, Blake McCandless, Alec Martinez, all side by side, racing for about the 7th, 8th, 9th positions as they carry off into turn 1. Horn's going to slide up in front of McCandless, who still is stuck in the middle now, sideways, and gets clear of Martinez. They'll come though to the white flag, this time by Nathan Lyon.
Oh, crash to the back.
But a crash in the back of the field, and we will go green, white, checker racing underneath the arch in St. Louis. As it was the 06 of Spencer E. Burns was one of the first ones to go around. Nick Miller was there. I think we might have seen Nick Indelicato get swept up in that. Landon Huffman was involved, and a bunch of people sideways and out of control as we'll go back under the yellow and have our first attempt at 3 at a green white checker this evening.
Incident happened on the exit of turn 2, and the after effect nowhere for Burns, Danson, and several of the other drivers to go for low line racing and SPG. But Landon Huffman was the trigger in all of this on the exit of turn 2. It's not been a pretty night for the Total Advantage Motorsport machine. He ended up pushing up towards the fence again off of turn 2. In turn, nowhere to go as he got just about squeezed by the 9 machine on the corner exit, pinballed into him, tries to keep it straight, but in turn, locks it up. He avoids most of the damage, but the 9 machine couldn't lock it up as he went back to the top of the line.
Nathan Lyon has been in control, and it's been all about the restarts between Lyon and Minter over the course of the evening. And Anthony, I want to bring you in for your experience on restarts, especially if you're Minter. I think we know what Lyon can and can't do. He's got control of the restart. He can decide whenever he wants to fire within the box, and then everybody else has to follow. But if you're Minter, how do you balance gauging what the leader does versus trying to get the jump on the leader to be at least side by side with him or better going into turn one?
That's a great question, and to be honest, I don't want to give up too many of my secrets if any of my real life or iRacing competitors are listening to this. But there are many ways you could kind of approach a restart on the front row, and it's much easier if you're in third or fourth and you're able to follow leader whichever lane they're in and kind of start rolling when they do. And some places like the super speedways, you actually see them wave because they want the push, they want your help to get ahead. And in this case, being on the front row side by side, you really just got to carry as much momentum as you can and try to time it right. You don't know quite exactly when they're going to fire, but you got to do your best, because if you start rolling into the throttle too much, carrying too much speed, and you have to roll out of the throttle, from my experience as a race leader and controlling the restart, when you see that happen, that is exactly when you want to fire, when the driver starts to get ahead of you. And because they cannot fire before the leader, you typically want to go right then when they have to check up to allow you to get back even with them or even ahead, because you'll smoke them on the restart. So when you don't want that to happen to you when you're in second place beside the leader, so your best option is just to try to carry that momentum, try to run the same speed as them. Don't let them play any games like slowing up or speeding up, and race control is usually great about monitoring that. And at that point, it's just all you can do to stay side by side into turn one and try to fight for the lead.
So there is a little bit of skill to it, but ultimately you need a bit of a golden horseshoe too, JP, and that's the thing that I think we'll have to see. We saw Minter try and hit it off that first one, and whether or not it was Minter going too early or Lyon missing the shift, the world may never know, but that's the kind of thing I think you have to watch for if you're that 10 car, because if the Lyon gets out front, we've seen it here over these last few restarts. If we have a 2-lap restart and a green-white checker shootout, if Minter misses the restart by 4 or 5 car lengths, I won't say it's impossible for him to get back up to the 6 car, but I haven't seen any evidence over the course of this race that would suggest that he would be able to do it if he ends up in the same spot going into one that he has been over these most recent restarts.
And the reason I think on top of things here, James, that we've seen all of this happen is Nathan's been unpredictable. Once again, on how he's taken these starts. He's not made it to where you can easily guess, okay, it's a 3 count, okay, it's a 5 count, okay, he's going on green each time. He's switched up his position each time, and that's where that professional experience comes in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, where he's utilizing that to where you don't want people to guess exactly your count. If people start reading that, then that's where teams, especially alliances, start to eat you up and end up in turn being able to know that. So in other words, as long as Lyon keeps Tucker guessing, I think there's the chance we see that 4 or 5 car length disadvantage again from the 10 machine. It's just going to again come down to how Lyon plays this, and if Tucker mistimes it, this is going to be where anything could happen.
Anything can happen here at Gateway. We'll see if we get a clean restart, but we'll take a look and see how it goes. Lights are still on the pace truck. We're either, I would say, either 1 or 2 laps away from the restart. Lap 68 up on the board here. We're going to get 69 going when they come across the stripe, and we'll see whether or not lights come off the pace car or not when they cross the line. Lights are indeed off. So this is our first attempt at a green-white checker. Nathan Lyon, Tucker Minter, Anthony Burrows, Brandon McKissick, Donovan Strauss, then Gaten Rose, Connor Horn, Blake McCandless, Alec Martinez, Colton Salick, your top 10 for this restart. JP, anything you're watching for in particular?
I'm keeping an eye again on especially rows 2, 3, and 4 on how aggressive they are. We've seen how willing Connor Horn was to make a 3 wide to take advantage of his better grip through the corners. I expect him to be pushing. I'm expecting, though, drivers like Donovan Strauss or Anthony Burrows to push the issue. Try and make Nathan make a mistake to where him and his other teammates can try and jump. In other words, it's wide open, depending on how things go off into turn 1. I'm expecting also potentially, if we make it towards the final lap, a potential send for the win.
Could have a potential send for the win. Could have another yellow flag in place as well, as Nathan Lyon and Tucker Minter will lead us back to green at Gateway at Worldwide Technology Raceway. And it may be Lyon's prerogative again to get a good jump in. He did. And Tucker Minter is back by a car length, 2 car lengths maybe. It's not quite as bad as it has been on some of the other restarts, but plenty of work to do for Tucker Minter as they sail off into 1 and 2. If we get the white flag this time by, that will be the last lap we complete. Next flag will end the race as Connor Horn continues to fight down to the inside. Big block there from Donovan Strauss. Big send there. Contact between the 40 machine. They all start wrecking in the middle of 1 and 2. And the yellow flag comes out once again. And we'll try it again. Second green white checker as well.
Yeah, and what a save there from the 40 machine and all of that. But man, that could have been difficult right there for some of the air drivers. Again, that was Caden Rush who got nearly turned around after a massive send from Alec Martinez, and Eddie Kerner helped finish the job. We're lucky that the entire back half of the field didn't just stack up like Legos through to the apex of 3 and 4 right now. Take a look.
They just stacked up there in 3 and 4, and there wasn't much I think that could be done at the end of it all. We saw it was the 40 machine of Caden Rush that went sideways, and I don't think much that could have been done. It's like Eddie Kerner had that big send there, but it was also Alec Martinez who got into the 40. That's really what set this off. Kerner ended up being an innocent bystander. Blake McCandless had to go down to the grass to avoid the incident there, and they all spread out 3, 4, 5 wide before they eventually funneled back onto the racetrack. But a big-time wreck over there in 3 and 4. And how weird is it, Anthony, I'll turn to you, especially for a flat track like this. You see somebody spinning, and normally when you go to tracks that carry more speed, that have higher banking, everything tends to just play out so quickly. But when you have an incident like this where Rush is just sliding slowly as you ride with Blake McCandless on board, how more difficult is it to react and get yourself out of that situation?
I started answering the question before you finished there. I'm sorry about that. I was excited to answer because I was just going over this with my crew chief today, actually. We were talking about our real-life race to Dover this weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And Dover, a place like that, is a lot of banking. It's what we consider to be self-cleaning, meaning all the cars, when they start spinning, slide down the racetrack, out of the racing group. But at a place like this, like you just saw in turn 3 and 4, the drivers struggle to save the car and even redirect their cars to avoid the wreck, because you have someone sliding, it's a flat surface, they're in the gas, they're trying to save the car, keep it under them, make a correction to gather it back up. But unfortunately, when it's flat like this, if you yank the wheel and correct the car to avoid it, it's very easy to get up into the fence, into a car around you. And for the cars sliding, they're not going up or down the track, they're kind of just sliding, just like the number 40, in the middle of the racing groove. And it's really hard to get out of the way and avoid that. And for him, he can't do anything but try to save his race car and maintain his track position and really just keep from wrecking.
And you lean into the issue that you have with some of these flat tracks, especially by comparison to Dover. Dover, a self-cleaning track where you've got some room to get around people when they come back down off the banking, but here they just sort of sit, and there's nowhere you could really go unless you get really, really lucky. And I suppose it's a blessing for the field that you have so much runoff room in the middle of 3 and 4. You might have to go down to the grass, but you can get away from these incidents if they end up happening, and that, I think, is the biggest key of all. As Nathan Lyon is still your leader. This will be our second attempt at a green-white checker finish coming up, and we'll still have a few laps to go to line it up. But a lot of yellow flags and a tricky place to get around, I think. That's the story so far, JP, of this Maconi setup shops 130K.
Yeah, and I'm thinking there might be a few drivers at this point. You might be hearing some ribs trying to burn a little extra fuel, trying to make the car a little bit lighter to try and get a little extra straightaway speed, just a touch bit. Again, this is still in Nathan Lyon's hands. As long as they get to the white flag, I don't know how this is all going to shape out once again here, James, for anyone to try and make the move unless they get a couple great laps and really exit the corner strong to time it up to get right underneath line and force him off his preferred groove.
Yeah, Lion just needs a good restart, and that might be that as they begin to get side by side. So I suspect that we may end up with a green-white checker restart momentarily. Might be another lap before we get our shot at GWC number 2. But in the meantime, we'll remind you that coming up right after our broadcast of the ERL presented by SimSeats, it's the Cars Esports Tour live from Martinsville Speedway on Podium Esports Twitch channel. So you can hang tight and head right on over to twitch.tv/Podium Esports to catch the second half of tonight's doubleheader with the Esports Racing League. Paperclip, always a fun place, JP, and entertaining place to see a race. I think especially for the late models and the supers, they aren't quite as big as the national level touring series cars, and I do believe that makes the racing a little bit better for those cars at Martinsville than it does for some of the other machines that you see race there.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how the racing goes tonight for both the classes, both for the late model stock and the super late models. Expecting some potential contact, especially since there's drivers who take the braking zones differently. Some like to be careful and drag the brake. Others like to try and send it into the corner just about and try and make it stick next to the rumble strips. There's different methods to it, James, on how you would take the braking at Martinsville, and that might in turn make some interesting moments. I think it's going to be interesting, though, who in turn can keep their cars clean the entire night without any trouble.
We'll see how this pans out as everybody's still sideways and sorting themselves out amongst the fields here at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. Looks like, though, for the most part, everybody's just about lined up, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the lights go off the pace car this time around, and we might have our second attempt at a green-white checker here momentarily as the lights do finally go off the pace car, and we'll get set to go green flag racing once again. Lyon, Minter, Burrows, McKissick, Strauss, Horn, Martinez, Shalek, Kerner, and Rush as Nathan Lyon will be in control of the restart one more time. What's he do this time over Tucker Minter? How well does Minter read it at this stage? He's going to wait. He's going to wait. He's going to wait. He takes off. A good restart for Nathan Lyon. Better, I think, than the one he got last time. It's maybe about 2.5 car lengths back to the 10 machine as they go back into one more time. JP and Minter tries to get the big send, but he can't quite get to Lyon just yet.
Still a good corner exit, though, a little bit closer. Keep in mind that the rest of the field starting single forward except for one man, Connor Horn. He's now gained another position up inside the top 5. I don't know if he's got enough time to reach up to these front drivers, but I think this can come down to the final corner. Tucker Minter looks very strong in the apex off.
Nathan Lyon is going to come out of turn 4, and he will take the white flag. So this is it. Next flag ends the race, whether or not it's the checker or the yellow. Tucker Minter's going to have one more shot, JP.
And I think this may come down once again to turn 3 entry. Minter losing some time down the back straightaway once again. Might have to try and late break his way into the corner. 4 car lengths back. Nathan Lyon in good position as Minter elects to back it down. Doesn't go for the hard send as they head to the final corner.
It's all Nathan Lyon at home, and he'll take the victory in the Maconi setup shots 130K at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. Makes it 3 for 3 as Coke Series drivers sweep the first 3 races of the fall season for the Esports Racing League presented by SimSeats. But Lion's choice, as he's known on social media, winner at home, JP. That's got to be pretty special, I think, for him to get it done here at Gateway.
I think he's going to be fairly happy, absolutely, especially with what was, I guess we can best describe, a dominating performance. He was up inside the front of the field the entire race. Never left the entire top 10, even with the pit stop strategy. He was just the king and class of the field tonight, where he apparently was even saving the tires, mind you, with how much he had to cool down the tires, and that in turn just gave him enough of a boost to come away with the checkered.
Nathan Lyon burns it down on the front straightaway, and we will get set to bring you your full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. But this has got to be special, I think, for the Roush Fenway Racing driver in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Not every day that you get to see a driver win at his home track, but we had it in the spring. Blake Reynolds picked up the victory at Texas Motor Speedway in April, so I guess that's 2 seasons in a row that we've had a Coke Series driver not only win, but win at his home track. As Lyon gets it done over Tucker Minter, Anthony Burrows finished in the 3rd position this evening. 4th went to Connor Horn. Brandon McKissick finished in the 5th spot. 6th to the 99 of Colton Salick. Donovan Strauss finished in 7th. Alec Martinez was 8th. Eddie Kerner 9th, and Blake McCandless rounded out the top 10.
11th spot tonight, and all of that is Caden Rush. He was able to recover from that incident to get near the top 10. Lucas Cram 29th to 12th for his finish. Finlayson went from 35th to 13th, while Brown also went from the 30s to 14th. Presley Sora finished in 15th, with Nick Miller being shoved around a couple times tonight in the 9, still comes home in 16th. Calling in 17th position, Matt Danson in 18th. Burns and Short rounded out the top 20.
In the 21st position this evening was Nathan Rabideau. Nick Indelicato was 22nd. 23rd to Chris Rabel. Eli Hinton finished 24th. 25th to Brett Gardner. Garrison Hogan was 26th. Malachi and Drake 27th. 28th was Alex Bell. Ryan Kendrick 29th. And 30th JP was Blaze McKinney.
Landon Huffman, a rough race tonight. He is at DNF this evening, 14 laps down in 31st position. Also DNF tonight, Braxton DeWeese 20 laps down in front of Ethan Lane. John Midget avoided some of the big incidents tonight, still finished 34th after getting involved in later incidents. Jabo in 35th position, DNF'd along with Jimmy Mullis. Also involved in the big one down the front stretch, Kobe Wells and Zach Novak. Dylan Basin finished 39 in 48 laps down. Jose Salas Jr. 56 laps down in 40th. Cronky and Reynolds rounded out your starters, while Ben Bafford did not come out of the garage area tonight.
And that is a look at your full field rundown for the Maconi Setup Shop 130K. We now turn our attention to our winner, the 3rd different driver in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series to win in the fall season of the ESports Racing League presented by SimSeeds. Nathan Lyon now joins us. And Nathan, first and foremost, restarts. We'll go back to the big one first. Take us through what happened in your perspective and from your seat on the restart where everybody got stacked up behind and we had that big incident on the front stretch.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny incident. It was me and the 4 Nexus guys behind me, and we're on a TeamSpeak channel together getting ready for the restart. I let them know I was going to count them down. So I'm just kind of chilling in 4th gear, rolling, and then Tucker just almost goes before I even start to count them down. And that kind of had everyone else starting to go behind them, and next thing you know, the whole field's going and then stacking up and then wrecking each other. So that's kind of what happened there. And Tucker just went a little bit before I even gave a countdown.
And did that change the way you raced your restarts from there on out, knowing that he was willing to go out and try and get the jump on you that much? Or was it the same old game plan of I'm going to run my race and pick my spots and go for it where I need to?
I still gave them a countdown of a restart just because I kind of wanted to get some green flag laps going. I wanted to get the field kind of spread out as much as could. The first few laps to prevent the 3-wide racing and double foul and stuff that causes wrecks. But we still ended up getting cautions every single lap almost. So it was all about just kind of making those tires last because we pit early in the race on, I think, like lap 10. So it was really old tires at that point. I just turned like my fastest lap of the race on over 60 lap old tires just because that's how many cautions there were.
And I think the most important point of all tonight by far, not often that you get to see the Cup Cars race at Gateway, not often that we see drivers get the chance to win at their home racetrack. You have done both tonight, and in turn, I have to believe that winning here, especially given that you don't get to race here all that much, especially in high-profile series like this, it has to mean a little bit more and be pretty special to you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. To win at Gateway with it being my home track, the Cup cars should definitely get a Cup race hopefully one day here. I miss having the Xfinity cars here and the truck weekends. They still have truck and IndyCar coming up at the end of the month, but hopefully one day we can get a Cup race back at Gateway.
be a lot of fun, I think, and the drivers would have a challenge on their hands, as we've seen tonight. I know there are a lot of people that make it happen for you, Nathan. Who do you need to thank?
Of course, you guys for doing the broadcast each week. Anthony for putting on the league. Everyone at Rash Fenway had me on board for 2020 season. Everyone at Dead Zone Racing and Cosmet Splash and Go Graphics.
Well, Nathan, congratulations on victory number 1 in the fall season of the ERL presented by Sim Streets. Thanks, as always, for taking the time to chat with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week from the World Center of Racing.
Thanks, guys.
Nathan Lyon, P1. P2 tonight was Tucker Minter in the 10 car, and he is with our Justin Prince.
Strong run tonight. Your best finish of the season so far, Tucker. How are you feeling coming home second this evening here at Worldwide Technology Raceway?
I'm happy to come home second. I don't think I had anything for Nathan, and he was super fast tonight, but I was having a tough time keeping up with him, and I was burning my tires off. Luckily, the yellows kind of saved me there.
With that point now, with the tires burning off, what was some of the difficulties for you for this evening to try and keep those tires cool and save without as well going through so many heat cycles with some of the restarts where you burn that goodness off of said tires? How difficult was that tonight?
Well, just on the first run, and then a few restarts after it, when I was trying to get past Novak, I was just, instead of rolling the center, I was really trying to force it to turn, and that was really hurting me a little bit. But in the end, I don't think tires really mattered. It was all about track position.
What would you do differently then if that's the case after tonight and what you've seen this evening?
I mean, I feel like our strategy was pretty good. Just when we pitted was, I think, smart. What I do differently is I stacked up a restart pretty bad. I was looking in my mirror with third place, and I ended up going a little bit before Nathan did. That caused a lot of guys problems like Eddie, and I feel really bad about that. But otherwise, it was pretty good race for me.
Yeah, Nathan actually clarified on top of that apparently there was a count being given too with you guys in the same Discord, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really stupid mistake that I shouldn't have made. I feel like a real idiot. I've been having trouble with my restarts recently. I really got to straighten that out. I had trouble last night in Road to Pro, and just a lot of stuff like that. But I mean, there's nothing I can do about it now. I apologize to Eddie. He's not too upset, but it was just really stupid. I'm not going to do it again.
Next race coming up, Daytona Oval. Quick thoughts.
I mean, it's going to be wild. It's definitely going to shake up the points with how wild it is now, with Jimmy having a bad race and Blake having a bad race, Eddie still bringing him a top 10. But, you know, anything can happen at Daytona.
Who do you want to thank for that number 10 machine tonight?
I just want to thank everyone at Nexus. Cosman gave me a great new paint scheme for this league with the Halo Nexus paint. It's pretty slick, and I guess my family. I'm here at college, so my connection's not too good. Thank everybody for not running into me if I blinked at all.
Don't think anyone ran into you tonight. Congratulations. We'll see how you do next race in that spooky paint.
Thank you.
Tucker Minter, P2 tonight, James.
Tucker Minter gets it done tonight, and P3 in this evening's race was Anthony Burrows in the 29 machine. Best finish of the season for you, Anthony, and I think it was just a matter of treading water. I don't necessarily know if that maybe gives you enough credit just off the way it sounds, but to be able to maintain a top 5 car just about all night, a lot easier said than done, especially here at Gateway. How'd you manage to pull it off?
Felt like my speed was pretty good. I think I was around 4th or 5th on speed, but just got lucky, qualified up front, kind of stayed there. I got a little scared when the guys, there were like 4 or 5 guys that stayed out on old tires after that first yellow, but got by them pretty cleanly. And then I think I was 3rd the whole race after that. But yeah, I feel like I could have gotten past Tucker, or at least battled him a little bit if we could have gone green a bit longer. But yeah, overall I was pretty happy with my speed tonight, and just gonna try to keep getting these top 5s off each race.
Daytona next week, that's going to be a little bit trickier. It's a little bit less about skill, a little bit more about luck. How's your racing at the plate tracks, and what's your game plan to survive?
Might just ride at the back. I usually don't have the best luck at plate tracks, so I think my safest option would just be to kind of chill at the back and wait for motor wreck. But yeah, you never know. It could end up going green, could be a caution fest. It's hard to predict those races, but that's what makes them fun. So yeah, hopefully we can survive it and just get a solid finish out of it next week.
I know there are a lot of people that make it happen for you, Anthony. Who do you need to thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, big shout out to my team Nexus ESports. Trying to make it pro this year, and they've been a huge help. Shout out to them, all my teammates. Tucker ran great tonight. Shout out to Brandon McKissick too. He also ran pretty good. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Anthony, congratulations on your podium. Thanks as always for chatting with us, and we'll see you down in Daytona next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And that concludes our podium interviews. Anthony Alfredo, first to you for your final thoughts. A completely different kind of race we'll see next week at Daytona. A title that you may or may not have to defend. For those who remember, Anthony won the first race of the Esports Racing League back in February at the World Center of Racing. So you going to hop behind the wheel for next week, or are you going to be up here in the booth with us to see how it all pans out?
As much as I want to sit in the booth with you guys once again and help announce and watch the things unfold, I think I do have to go back to Daytona and defend my title after winning the inaugural ERL race there last season. So looks like I'm going to be strapping into my SimSeats driving simulator and inside my virtual SimSeats Chevrolet Camaro Z01 and try to go back-to-back at Daytona International Speedway on the oval this time. So first race of the year for me in the series, and I'm excited to heck, I got to try to qualify. I didn't lock in, so I'm going to try to qualify my way in, and after doing that, see where I stack up against some of these guys. But it should be a great time. Maybe we could do some in-race reporting live from the cockpit, and I'm looking forward to it. But tonight, as you mentioned, tremendously different from what we're going to see next weekend. Plate racing versus what you might consider short track racing, even though Worldwide Technology Raceway is 1.25 miles in length. But interesting event. A lot of cautions, but we haven't seen many in the last two events, our first two races of the year at the Daytona Road Course and the very first race at Michigan. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season unfolds, especially next week on the Superspeedway of Daytona International Speedway.
Plate racing, and I think the storyline here, maybe to watch, JP, is going to be the rivalries that we've seen develop. Tucker Minter and the Richmond Raceway Esports folks, Nathan Lyon, Blake Reynolds, Jimmy Mullis and company, all in the mix there, I think. And Eddie Kerner, we saw a little bit irritated too. It could be fun. I have to believe we're starting to see some of the big time battles pop up.
Absolutely, and it's been intense so far for the drivers looking to show what they can do against the Coke drivers, and then the Coke drivers themselves as well. On top of that, the big organizations on iRacing and the top technical alliances. When it comes to Daytona, you have to keep in mind there's plenty of drivers with teammates in the field. HVM had a few drivers up the front. Dead Zone and Total Advantage expect those drivers to work together. You have Nexus with many drivers to work with. Teamwork's going to matter, and if you don't have friends in the pack at Daytona, you're not making your way up towards the front. It could be tricky to see which grouping of cars can work together the best to win.
Plenty of events to watch here coming up in the world of iRacing, but the one you need to pay attention to right now on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Get ready to head over as we bring you the Cars Esports Tour from Martinsville Speedway. We'll be back on air next week, next Wednesday night, August 26th, for the Top Flight Computers 125 at the World Center of Racing. Daytona International Speedway is home. That'll be 7:30, as always, here on the ERL Twitch channel or wherever you may be watching us. For Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore at Podium Esports, for Anthony Alfredo and Chris Mulhall and Zach Johnson at the ERL, for Jeff Maconi and Maconi Setup Shops, and for my colleague in the booth, Justin Prince, and our producer, Ryan Bauer, powered by Top Flight Computers, I'm James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of the Maconi Setup Shop 130K. Congratulations to Nathan Lyon, and flip on over to the Podium Esports Twitch channel for the Cars Esports Tour from Martinsville Speedway. Thank you all for watching. We look forward to seeing you from Martinsville in just a moment.